matter of consciousness that we're lacking now.
And it has to be for us one of the tenets of the gospel we preach as black preachers. I don't shy away from the fact that there is a black church.
I know, I've heard you say that before.
Exactly. I mean, I've heard prominent African Americans on television. There's no black church, no white church. There's just church.
Right.
That goes against our own history and against what God has done through us in raising up this liberation church for people who were and are oppressed. The black church was relevant during the time of slavery. Yeah. It was relevant during the time of civil rights, and it must find its relevance now.
Right. That's right.
And I think, and I talked to Kazava and others about this, a key scripture right now for us is in 1 Corinthians 7. The Apostle Paul uses these words when he's talking about actually marriage and relationships. And he kind of changes everything the Bible ever taught about getting married. And Paul says, don't get married. It's like, wow, people should get married. But he goes on to say, because of this present distress, because of what's going on right now, we may need to shift resources, shift direction, and move in that direction because of present distress. If the black church would look at the black community and its own people and look at present distress, if we would do that, then we would move in another direction. All right? We would move resources, move ministries in another direction. And that's what a prophetic church would do right now. You know, don't talk to me about young black men killing each other on the streets, but that's just, you know, we're going to do a little something, but we're going to spend the whole 98% of our time is still on this stuff that we do every week. Right. We may put 2% with no resources. I mean, you know, going down to City Hall, and I've heard you say it, a person's priorities, look at the budget.
That's right.
A person's treasure is.
That's right. Look at the budget. I guarantee you, and all these pastors who are listening today, and we're all guilty of it, look at our church's budgets and see how much is going towards this stuff we now say is important.
It's important, right.
And it'll be minimal. We spend more on maintenance than we will on mission. We will spend more on salaries than we will on saving black lives.
That's a good point. And this whole notion of present distress, now, as we look at what's going on in the city, with all of these development projects and all the fights that are going on now with the horrendous percentages of this public money that's not going to black contractors and black people not being employed. That's the present distress. So how are we directing our attention, our focus, and our energies toward changing that? I think, I mean, as you know, I mean, we have some terrible. I have all of the statistics here and all of the issues that are going on in the Cincinnati public schools and the city of Cincinnati and development going on at the banks down on the riverfront and everything. How do you guys feel about that? Now, I know you've kind of been. The Black United Front, we were intense in that, you know, a few years ago, and you were involved with the Baptist ministers some years ago. Well, what's your thinking about what's going on in Cincinnati now with these disparities that we see?
It's horrible.
Yeah.
When you talk about the very small percentage of contracts that blacks have received, and then, you know, they expect blacks to just sit back and just take it and, well, okay, that's just the way it is. You know, I constantly talk about what is the differences between Avondale and Hyde Park. You know, Hyde Park is predominantly white, Avondale predominantly black. Hyde Park, you very seldom hear about shootings. Avondale, almost every other day. And so people say, well, the churches. Avondale is loaded with churches.
That's right.
I mean, there's over 50-some churches. I doubted that for a long time. Just recently, I got here and started counting them. It's over 50-some churches in Avondale. And so we have the churches. But the two big differences are we talk about education and economics. And so people in the Hyde Park have better jobs and they're better educated. Now, I also think back, though, when I look at the 50s, you know, we didn't have education. We didn't have the jobs, and we wasn't shooting each other.
Right.
You know, so something has happened in between that time. You know, I can't. I'm sure Damon. Something has happened in between that time to make black people especially angry with the way things are going on. And but what we're doing is we're taking our anger out on ourselves, you know.
One another.
Mainly we're killing each other.
That's right.
Damon did a powerful sermon at a funeral not too long ago. And forgive me for using the N word, but that's mainly what he was talking about, is that when a brother get ready to kill another brother, he has to first degrade him, first to have to lower him down to a standard that's almost nothing by calling him nigger.
Yeah.
And once they nigger, you know, I'll kill you. You know, you ain't gonna say, well, educated man, I'll kill you.
That's
you
right.
know, but nigger, I'll kill you.
Yeah.
And so we hate each other. And I think Damon has really hit the nail on the head. The mindset really has to be changed. But it's good that we have persons who are out in the community, like the Baptist Ministers Conference, I'm saying Smitherman, who are out there really trying to protest about the lack of contracts we're receiving. But at the same time, and we talk about economic empowerment, we have to look beyond just working on a site, which is good though. It definitely, we have to really look at being developers ourselves.
Definitely.
You know, we're the ones who are developing the hotel. We're the ones who are developing the restaurant, not just after the restaurant is built, then we don't have any more jobs.
Exactly.
You know? So we have to be the developers as well.
Yeah, yeah. This whole long-term thinking in economic empowerment is real important. After the building or the facility or stadium or whatever it is built, there's still a whole lot of business that's going to go on the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And that's how we have to think. And I wanted to get back to the point you made about Damon's sermon at the funeral. I was thinking about that. And I was thinking about this, I don't know, I can't quote the verse, but it's in Judges where it said, after Joshua died, the generations did whatever they wanted to do. After Joshua and the people who were with him.
Judge.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm thinking now that are we suffering from a generation that is unchurched, quote unquote? Because I've talked to pastors who've done funerals, and they say these folks come up into the church and it's like they've never been in a church.
You're right.
And he said, one of the pastors told me, he said, I was preaching the sermon and the guy got up and walked right in front of me and did a gang sign. All the people got up and walked out. And I know you've been through some pretty rancorous kinds of funerals.
I have one.
Are we suffering from that kind of generational disconnect?
Let's say yes, but so what? We can say yes, but then let's change it.
What do you do? Yeah.
Well, yeah. What do you do?
Yeah.
What I've noticed, and those who watch gospel TV, I've watched preachers preach on TV doing great job. I'm sitting there, I'm enthralled, I'm mesmerized, and then the camera will scan around. And sometimes the youth choir will be behind him, and he's getting down. I'm like, man, this guy's deep. And I watch the kids in his own church, in the choir. They're asleep, they're talking, they're so, I don't care if it's T.D. Jakes, Noel Jones, it does not matter. They are disconnected even in the church. And I've watched in my own congregation, you know, I'm preaching, and I'll see my little kids, they'll be off talking and laying on their mama's lap sleeping. I'm going, wow, am I not connecting? But then I noticed there's some young preachers in this town. I know Little Russo, Neil, it's another young guy that we bring off into my church. My kids love it. They're like just like this. I'm going, wow, this brother's reaching them. I'm not. You know, and maybe I'm beyond that now. I think the answer to our young people problem is young people. All right, I've said, and I'll say it again, and I'd be willing to. Because, you know, if the Lord works some things out, I'll have a building available. That at least one Sunday out of a month, all of our young people, my young people, everybody go to one spot.
One place.
They don't come to New Prospect or New Jerusalem. They come to one spot and they get empowered. All right? Because if you empower just the ones in the church and then send them back out, send them back to high school, send them back to grade school, and they get empowered, that becomes our army that leads us. You teach them. Again, you know, I know we all got our youth programs and we all got our little stuff. I'm not knocking that. I'm saying let's bring it together and do something larger. So we can teach them about Christ, teach them about themselves, their history, economics, and empower them. You know, we say our young people out in the streets are armed and dangerous. Well, there's two ways to be armed and dangerous. The other is with knowledge.
That's right.
knowledge.
Right.
Let's do something in Cincinnati that's not being done. The AME churches, not the AME, I'm sorry, the Methodist churches, Black Methodist churches got together about a month ago. AMEs, CMEs, AMEZs, they said, look, we got to come together as one for our youth,
Yeah.
nationwide, and come up with a nationwide project for our young people. We can do that in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
All right?
And you know, I've been promoting that for years, and this whole notion of collective activity.
Sure.
I mean, it's biblical. Why aren't we not doing that
we don't.
more?
We do
Why?
very little
We have
collective.
our own little kingdom.
Yeah, I mean, I know you're doing collective banking.
Yeah, the collective
You're
banking
pushing
group.
that.
Yeah.
We used to have a collective revival in the city.
Yeah,
That's not what it
simultaneous.
used to be. We suffer when it becomes to collective, because I think we buy in to what the right wing people tell us about individualism, rugged individualism.
Yeah, right.
Well, we're a community,
That's right.
you know, and where
That's
we
our
come from,
orientation. Yeah.
it was always about collective
Right.
responsibility and collective action.
Right.
And the church needs to lead the way on that.
And it historically it always has.
Right.
And we've gotten away from that because, as KZ just said, we're in our little cubicles
Right.
and our own little isolation places, isolated places.
We'll see what
doing our own thing.
what the other churches that are flourishing now have learned how to do is break down some of those walls we used to build up around doctrine and who believes what.
Right.
Well, that's why people say, well, I'm just going over here because it's non-denominational.
Yeah.
So I don't have to worry about whether I'm Baptist or I'm Church of God in Christ or Church of Christ.
Yeah.
And all those things we have put up that we hold on to.
We build our own
Yeah.
separations.
Damon and I have talked about, I might get in trouble for saying this, but buying a piece of land, I build a church on one side, he built a church on the other side. We have a family life center in between. We both can use the
Both
family
use
life
it,
center.
yeah.
And every now and then, both congregations come together and just worship. You know,
Right.
Yeah.
we've been kicking that around
Yeah.
for a while, but things like that is definitely needed. You know, for churches to really work together because the problems out here are too big for any one congregation.
That's right.
To really deal with. Look at the violence out in the street. It's going to take really the body, the
right.
masses of churches really come together.
That's
to-
what
but
Doc Foster says all the time. That
Right.
If this problem is going to be solved, it's going to have to. Churches are going to have to solve it.
Well, and if the problem is going to be solved, understand the problem on a macro level. Again, history is the best teacher.
Right.
America is no longer an industrial nation.
Right.
All right, that adversely impacts the black community. That strongly impacts us. America is sending jobs overseas.
That's right.
All right, to China. Manufacturing now is being done in China. Those are jobs that we should have been getting.
Right.
What happened to the black community is this is the time when everything opened up during the civil rights movements, and our fathers were able to go in to Fisher Body and GM and get jobs, and General Electric. They started sweeping.
Right.
They got the broom.
Right, yeah.
But they now would have moved up.
Okay.
They now were in the position to open the door for their sons and daughters. They were able, with a high school education, to get a middle class job, to move their family from wherever they wanted to go into Kennedy Heights, into Roselawn,
Right.
Silverton.
Yeah.
When that went away, this generation, their promise of now being able to walk into Powell Val and all those places,
Millicron,
yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
And you didn't have to go to college to do that.
Right.
If you were going to college, great, because we were now in a position to send you. But if all you were going to do was a high school diploma and you wanted to come in making $14 an hour
Yeah.
and be able to move up, get married, and that's a
Right.
whole nother thing.
Yeah.
Get married, because that's,
Right.
seriously, the demise of our community
Yeah.
is the lack of people
Family.
getting family.
That's right.
So those things have to be put together, and we've got to work on a macro and micro level. I'll say this quickly and I'll stop. While we're fighting CPS, the city, and all those for those jobs, a month ago, my wife and I went down to the Home and Garden Show down at the convention center. You know, get some ideas for, a basement remodeling or a backyard, whatever. There was not one black vendor in the Home and Garden Show. Now, I know it's small money. Actually, it's big money if you ask me.
Yes.
But if I'm going to redo my basement, that's going to be some serious money. Not one black vendor, because we're saying, well, we can't get in on the big job.
Right.
Well, there's still money to be made.
Oh, it's money out there.
Yeah.
Right.
How do I, bro? I need to know you're
Money
out
everywhere.
there.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, and clearly I know I'm going to use a guy named John Camp to do my basement.
Yeah.
Plug, shout out to him. So I just happen to know. But how am I going to know? How will people know that black folk do landscaping, yard work?
That's right.
Can design it and lay it out for you.
Right.
So we're missing some of the other opportunities, you know, and I know we'll have some excuses why we can't get in the home and garden show too. It costs money. Well, yeah, sometimes it does
In
cost
business,
money to make money.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Right. Yeah.
And then last thing I'll say, we did a ad book in our church of every black-owned business in our church.
There you go.
We put together an ad book. We gave it to every member in our church. We told them to sit it on the table next to your Bible.
There you go.
And your phone book.
Yeah.
And before you call anybody else
That's right.
to do business, go through that ad book.
Yep. Yep.
Because 9 times out of 10, there's somebody in our church who can do what you need
That's
done.
right. Exactly.
And
Yeah.
we put that together.
Yeah, we promoted that as well
we've done the
at,
same
at church, and the same thing. I said, well, you may be sitting right next to
Right.
somebody who can fix your plumbing or
Exactly.
lay your carpet, do whatever needs to be done. We need to look internally first
Right.
and circulate our dollars there. Let's start there, and then we can branch out collectively. And through, you know, for instance, through the collective banking group, we can assess all the businesses that we
Exactly.
have in our churches
Exactly.
and reach out and use those businesses no matter what congregation they're in.
Right.
That's how I think we can have or start to build a solid,
Right.
secure economic base
Right.
among our people and create some jobs for our children, because that's the end product. To be able to create jobs, to make some jobs.
Right.
Yeah, that's the end product. I don't know how much time we have left. I think we're probably running down, but I want to just kind of, I guess, encapsulate some of the thinking now, your current perspective as you are moving through your, moving into your seasoned age group, I guess. Where do you go from here? What do you guys? I know you have a new location. You're looking at a new location.
Right.
What's in the future for Damon Lynch III and KZ Smith?
I think for me, as I move into what you call this new season, I now move a little slower and a little more deliberate.
Deliberate. I've noticed that about you.
A little slower and a little more deliberate.
Right.
I don't just jump.
Yeah.
Like I used to.
Yeah.
I am really want to get in position to support others and to support new leadership. When we started the Black United Front, I think the thing that I loved the most about being the president of the front was the people like yourself, Jackie Shropshire,
Yeah.
the elders.
Yeah.
The elders who were willing to be there with us and lend that advice and support. That made me as a young man feel empowered
Yeah.
to know that they were willing to follow my lead.
That's right.
And give me advice and support. And we had a lot of elders.
We did. Yeah.
Didn't we?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
men and women.
Yeah. Men and women.
I pray that God gets me to that position to be that elder.
Yeah.
So that as the movement continues to move, that I'm there supporting that new leadership that's taking us forward.
That's the way it's supposed to work.
Right.
As we grow,
Right.
we learn. You know, we're moving through our years. We should be able to step back and say, okay, I've been through this. I've had my time